Welcome back, friends, to another video. In the last 2 months, a scandal has broken out at the US Federal Reserve, and so I'm going to be breaking down all the details for you in this video. If you watch my channel, you know that I'm generally very supportive of the US Federal Reserve and the US dollar. But a scandal has broken out with multiple leaders in the organization making stock trades on insider information. This is so horrible, and a lot of people are watching this very closely. Let's go over what happened. Last month, 2 Federal Reserve regional presidents resigned in the midst of a scandal over their financial disclosure forms. These positions are very influential on setting economic policy, and they are required to disclose their financial transactions every year. The 2 officials were Boston Fed President Eric Rosengren and Dallas Fed President Robert Kaplan. Let me show you exactly what happened. Here is the financial disclosure form for Robert Kaplan from last year. The first section is Schedule A. You can see that he owns enormous amounts of individual stocks in companies, many over $1 million. Now, this list is actually very long. I can't fit them all on the screen, but I just wanted to show you what the financial disclosure form looks like. This already is an ethical conflict of interest. We see under Schedule A that he owns over 1 million shares in both Chevron and Delta Airlines. And the amount that he actually owns is going to be well over $1 million because you can also see from dividends alone, he made over $500,000 last year. So here's the question. Do you think he will be incentivized to make economic policies that would be good for the oil industry and the airlines, potentially at the expense of the American people? This form shows that he has a significant financial interest in these individual companies, but it goes farther than that. If we go down to Section B, it shows that he bought and sold over $1 million in shares of both Chevron, Delta Airlines, and many more. This is an enormous amount of transactions. It sure looks that he's spending more time trading his personal stock portfolio than doing his job at the Fed. And this is during the same time as the pandemic crisis grips the nation. The nation's economy is falling apart, and this guy is trading his stocks. So this is what the scandal is about. Both Eric Rosengren and Robert Kaplan's financial disclosure forms show that they were trading millions of dollars of stocks in individual companies. This is insider trading. They are trading based on information not known by the greater market. When you work at the Federal Reserve, you're actually taking actions that affect the stock prices of these companies. These people knew what was going to happen. When they make certain statements, the stock market goes up. When they make other statements, the stock market goes down. And they can use that knowledge to make money. Let me explain why insider trading is so bad. Free markets require a fair playing field. Everyone needs to know the same information so that markets can set prices. If someone is gaming the system, it means that someone else is getting screwed. You have to remember that there is always someone else on the other end of a stock sale. So if one person knows some secret information that guarantees that they're going to make money, that means the other person is a sucker and is guaranteed to lose money. When these things happen, people lose confidence in the market and no one wants to invest because no one wants to lose their money. Markets have to be fair or they do not work. In this case, we have the elites at the head of the Federal Reserve gaming the system. These are the people who are supposed to protect the economy. And we are talking about millions of dollars of stock transactions that were probably traded with ordinary Americans who then got screwed. Now, No one has suggested that what these Fed presidents did was illegal. It seems that technically they followed all the laws in these transactions, but what they did was not right, and it was not ethical. These people knew better. So I'm just an ordinary accountant, and I even know you're not supposed to do this. When you are a leader in an organization, you cannot trade stocks on information related to your organization that only you know about. That is insider trading. Now, no one is saying that you can't have investments as the leaders of these organizations, but you can do it in a way that does not create a conflict of interest. So these two Fed presidents were the start of the scandal, but it has gotten worse. Vice Chair Richard Clarida moved between $1 to $5 million from bonds to stocks the day before Chair Jerome Powell issued a statement about policy actions during the pandemic. So just imagine this scenario. These people are working together on a response to the pandemic. Richard Clarida knows that Jerome Powell is going to make a statement regarding his efforts to boost the economy, and Richard buys an enormous amount of stock the day before the announcement. Now, just to be clear, these people have all released statements saying that they have done no wrongdoing here. And the Fed actually released a statement saying that Richard's trades were pre-planned and he did not know anything. He didn't know anything? What is he doing all day at his job then? The other Fed presidents said their resignations were for medical reasons. Now, you can believe all this or not, but the scandal keeps getting worse. The federal chairman himself, Jerome Powell, is in the crossfires of this scandal. Jerome Powell sold between $1 to $5 million of stock in an index fund. This happened conveniently right before the market tanked when it lost 6% of its value. Now, Jerome Powell is not as bad as the others because at least he was selling an index fund and not individual stocks. But it is still horrible. Why is he trading his personal stock portfolio? This is an enormous stock sale. It gives him an economic incentive for the market to go down. If he just sold, he wants the market to go down so he can rebuy the stock at a better price. So ordinary Americans are struggling to make it through the pandemic, and the chair of the Federal Reserve, who is supposed to be looking out for the economy, is betting against the stock market. The Fed has now responded to this scandal. Jerome Powell has issued new rules for its leadership prohibiting them from owning individual stocks. They can now only hold mutual funds and go through a more rigorous ethics check, including a 45-day notice period before making transactions. If you want my opinion, there should be a 6-month waiting period before making stock transactions. These are wealthy people. They can afford to plan 6 months ahead before making a stock purchase. They're holding important positions where there are public servants. As a matter of respect for the public they serve, it should not be a problem for them to wait 6 months. Then there would not be any potential for them to game the system. If 6 months seems like too much uncertainty in a volatile market, you can always ensure your transactions by purchasing options so you end up with a price that you want. What all of this really shows is a culture problem at the Federal Reserve. It goes all the way to the top, where people are looking out for their own interests instead of doing their jobs. I think it is great that they put these stronger rules in place, but it has shattered my confidence in Jerome Powell to lead this institution, an institution that is so important to our lives. This has all come to light when Jerome Powell's appointment is coming to an end in 3 months. President Biden has to decide whether to nominate Jerome Powell to serve for another 4-year term as the head of the Federal Reserve. Since this scandal and this important decision by the president, it is worth taking a closer look at Jerome Powell. And there are some interesting things about Jerome Powell. To start with, he is the most wealthy chair of of the Federal Reserve. He is incredibly rich, which is one reason I do not understand why he had to make these stock transactions. When he took the job in 2017, his assets were between $21 and $61 million. Given his stock trades, those values are probably a lot more now. He is also not an economist, which is unusual for the head of the Federal Reserve. Instead, he is an investment banker. Let's take a look at the background of Jerome Powell. He earned a degree in politics from Princeton and a law degree from Georgetown in Washington, D.C. He worked in the Republican administration under George W. Bush, but most of his work experience was as a lawyer in New York and as an investment banker. So he is a lawyer, a politician, and a very rich investment banker. Now let us contrast that with the last several heads of the U.S. Federal Reserve. Paul Volcker was chair from 1979 to 1987. He was an economist. He attended Princeton, where he wrote a thesis on the problems of Federal Reserve policy since World War II. He then got a master's in political economy from Harvard University. Then he studied at the London School of Economics. He successfully tackled and corrected the worst inflation problems in U.S. history. His great accomplishment was the suspension of gold convertibility. Next, Alan Greenspan was chair from 1987 to 2006. He was an economist. He attended New York University's Stern School of Business, earning a bachelor's in economics, a master's in economics, and a PhD in economics. Alan Greenspan is famous for successfully guiding the economy through the dot-com bubble. Next, we have Ben Bernanke. He was chair from 2006 to 2014. He is an economist. He graduated from Harvard with a bachelor's in economics and a master's in economics. He received a PhD in economics from MIT. And he was a professor of economics at Princeton, and he chaired the Department of Economics. He is famous for successfully guiding the economy through the Great Recession and avoiding a near economic collapse. Next, we have Janet Yellen, chair from 2014 to 2018. She is an economist. She graduated from Brown University with a bachelor's in economics. She received a master's and a PhD in economics from Yale University. She is famous for two things. Number one, under her 4-year span, she achieved the lowest unemployment in the United States since 1970. Number two, she stood up to President Donald Trump and said it would be wrong for him to weaken or repeal the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. Donald Trump fired Janet Yellen and replaced her with Jerome Powell. And that brings us back to Jerome Powell. So let's look at this list. Do you see a pattern here? Economist, 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 and investment banker? These were all economists until Jerome Powell, who is a rich investment banker who is using the Federal Reserve to trade stocks. Are you kidding me? Does anyone else see the problem with this? Why do we not have an economist as the head of the U.S. Federal Reserve? So here's what I think. I think Jerome Powell has done a good job. You know, he has made some tough decisions and has gotten the nation through the pandemic. But with this scandal, I think it's time that we move on to someone else. We have so many incredible economists in this country. Let's put an economist back as the head of the U.S. Federal Reserve. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think about the U.S. Federal Reserve? Go ahead and leave your comments in the comment section down below. I want to know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Zach from Wolves in Finance. Let's go out and make some money.